Hi, a couple of people asked me to just describe my studio and how my work process is, or how I proceed during the day, I guess, but I thought that would be pretty boring. But anyway, I guess what I do isn't so boring, but for me, of course, I do it every day. Anyway, I actually have a studio that's fairly large. It's a big old boathouse on the river. It's right on the bay, so my water actually, the water's underneath my building. I'm on stilts. They call them Bigfoots. So the floor of my studio is fairly cold, but I got heat obviously in here, and my throwing wheels are right there. So I have a setup right by the water so I can enjoy the view, and I watch Simon Leach right on YouTube right above me there quite often during the day, and other people too. But I have a trimming wheel right there. This is my white wheel. This is my speckled clay wheel, and then I use this one occasionally for red clay, but barely at all. And then that's the wheel I take outside in the summer, when COVID's not on, of course, because I don't want people leaning over me too close. I have a trimming wheel right here, so I do all my trimmings right underneath there. And then my work table is right here. And of course that's the view again, and I have my little it's another iPad there that's watching my gallery in case I get customers coming into the building across the road. And then I've got a scroll saw in the corner there for cutting those stencils, and a cupboard full of slips, and my little orders done, to do, finished, whatever there. And then my gas kiln is right outside that door there in the other building next to here. I don't have running water in the building, so I have to use rainwater, which I gather and store in the building so it warms up. I have another red clay wheel here, which is the one I use all the time, but it's a bit squeaky, so some people complained it was too noisy, so I never video myself on that wheel. And my compressor obviously there. My tools are on a wheel cart, so I can actually move it anywhere I want in the actual space. And there's a multitude of carving tools there that I use, and I've got my new diamond core tools underneath there. Then what else do I have? There's Simon's wheel right there, which I bought to demonstrate just as COVID started, so I haven't really used it much because I was going to have people come right in and I'd be level with them talking. I have another wheel there which I use when I'm demoing in the summer as well. And then this is my clay recycling table. So I have the buckets down here where I throw all the slops, and then I pour it on there, and every night when I leave I scoop the wet center onto the outside wall, and over a period of about 2 weeks to a month I build up enough so I can turn the pug mill on. But here's my cupboards with work that's ongoing. So the work on the right is drying, not quite ready for trimming. The work in the middle cupboard is now trimmed, and I think it's trimmed. Yeah, I think all of that is trimmed. I'll have to check. But this is work that is finished and trimmed as well. I'm for the second time I'm trying those tagines. You can see them there. The first batch I made cracked, so I gave up on it for a while. Then you walk through, and I got lots of tools and stuff there where I actually I don't use those tools very often, but there's a whole bunch of different things I can. Because I don't have running water, I have 2 sinks which don't drain into anything. I have buckets underneath which never fill up because I always hand empty the water in the 2 buckets in the center. So I take that and then I pour it to settle out into a bucket down there, which is what gets thrown onto my clay slops. So just over here, I just walk, take the clay slops and pour it in the center. It's always pretty liquidy, and then I have a fan above if it's too humid where I can actually dry it a bit faster. But that's the messy clay recycling thing. And I won't go into the kiln room yet. I have a packing area where I do my shipping. So I got a table with orders right here, so I can ship and pack, and I got peanuts around the other side over there, and then I got bubble wrap, and the bubble wrap is stored above my head, so it's out of the way because you need lots of bubble wrap. I have my slab roller, I have my little test kiln, and I cut styrofoam when I'm packing, because and that is really messy. I try not to cut styrofoam, but occasionally I have to. And I use, I plant lots in the summer, in the winter, well, spring, I plant a lot of stuff, so there's a whole bunch of planting stuff there. So a lot of my studio, like here, I have grow lights, which I will be turning on probably in another 4 to 6 weeks when I start planting seeds. Lots of boxes. I store all my inventory that I'm making under the tables, boxed up and labeled. So I've got lots of inventory already built, and it's only January because of COVID. It's been a slower period, of course. And then I store pots on shelves. Some of these pots are really old as well, but I do store things in here as well as in boxes. It's just, you know, looking at things. I've got to hang some more things on the walls. It's looking a bit, you know, skimpy with my wall pieces, but my damp cupboards are actually accessible from either side, so I like that, so I can, you know, get to things really easily. And they are sealed with plastic at night so that things don't dry out uncontrollably during the evenings. And of course I got a couple of big vacuum cleaners there. They both work, but the one on the right is the one I use mostly now. And a photo setup. Because of YouTube, I've had to try and do photography a lot more. When I did craft fairs, of course, I actually photographed pieces to get into shows. And then a nice little stove, propane, not wood, which is an issue now because there's no propane. And there's my couch, which I brought in here for Poubelle. Sadly, she just passed, and who knows how long before I get another studio cat. I've got lots of house cats, so maybe one will come to join me down here. But anyway, there's the studio. Walking through, my wife's studio is upstairs through that door, and there's a composting toilet bathroom there because we don't have running water. And then my kiln area, I have this kiln preheating up to 189 degrees for an hour, and then I'll turn it on tonight. And then I've got my other kilns down there. One of them is cooling down, the one in the middle here, that's got a whole bunch of tiles that I did carvings of, which you saw recently. And then a glaze area, experimental glazes up there on top, and then stilts for the kilns, and decorating table when I'm doing slip trail glaze decorating, and lots of glazes, which you've seen in my videos. But I don't like working back here because there's no windows to look outside, but it is a very efficient glazing area. You know, just about everything to do with the kilns is stored back here. All the spare elements. I always buy all my supplies for kilns ahead of time, so I don't have to order when something breaks down. So I always have spare elements and spare relays and thermocouples. It's nice to be prepared because they do break. And then sieves and stuff up there. Pug mill. This is my 35-year-old pug mill that still works like a storm, but it doesn't de-air. The de-airing thing is underneath. I just haven't tried it for years, but I bet it would turn on if I wanted it to. But shelves are everywhere because you really need a lot of shelving when you have a studio. But that's it. It's a brief tour of the studio, and I guess the gulls just all landed outside. I get visited all day by all these gulls, and it's a sunny day, but it's freezing outside at the moment. But okay, this is the follow-up video on goblets, and these are goblets that I don't do myself, but I know how to make. You know, there's something for everybody in pottery, and that's the beauty of it. This is a slightly bigger piece of clay. This one is bordering on ½ a pound, so it's 1/3 of a pound at least. But that's not critical because you might want to make a short or a tall version of this. So you can choose the clay. I've had to put duct tape on my little finger because I'm wearing it out. Band-aids, you know, little plasters, whatever you call them. Different countries call them different things, of course, but they always come off. But duct tape will last for days. while you're throwing, so I always put duct tape around any little sores that I've developed on my finger from throwing. Okay, so this is just a hollow stem. So you push down right to the bottom, almost. As soon as you touch it, let go. You don't want to make it too sort of open, because it sort of distorts the actual piece when you're throwing if you thin out the bottom too quickly. And then I just pull the wall, starting to stick to my fingers, so let go. Same again, push in deep with your outside fingers, pull up. And press down with your finger right at the top so it flattens it if you get any bumpiness. Wet in and out again. You've got to narrow your fingers as thin as much as possible, and then push in with your outside fingers and push up. Start a pull basically. Squash down with your finger again to make sure that top is flat. And this is a hollow stem, basically. Where's my little tiny sponge here? Oh, I took it to a different wheel. Oh well, I can use my finger, I guess. I made myself a small, tiny sponge to get into narrow forms. Anyway, get the water out. Then, now you can do anything you want. You can leave it like that if you want to, or you can, let's make sure it's evenly wet all the way up. Instead of pouring water down, since I just dried the inside, I'm just wetting the outside so it's even. And then you can use your fingers to narrow even more as a collaring, basically. And when it gets sticky or dry, you let go slowly. See, we've got now a little bulge, which I don't want, but that could be your signature goblet shape for the stem. But I'm going to make that even narrower. And then let go slowly. Wet it again. You can keep doing this as long as it doesn't wobble. Why not go for it? See how narrow you can get it. It's definitely hollow all the way down. And you'll know because it'll start to wobble too much when you've got as far as you can get with this. Now I'm letting go slowly so it doesn't actually get narrow too much at the top here, because I like the top sides at the moment. Now I think that's way too big for a goblet, but the clay is fairly thick. Oops, I dragged it with the rib then. It caught the rib a little bit and left a little dig mark in there, which I just got rid of. But this will be a tall, elegant goblet. And then if you have a trimming tool, ask at Potter if you have a trimming tool. I've got trimming tools everywhere. I've got a nice one that can just take some of this off now. I'm going to stick my fingers just in there just to kind of control it a bit. Bang that off there. Just to narrow it just a little bit. Now I can flute down this, and when I trim it I can actually do some nice little textural grooves in it to identify different areas of it. Stick my fingers there, shake the water so I don't get any water in there. Now this wasn't much clay, remember, so I would say 1/3 of a pound for this piece. That's about the same width. It's just very tall for a goblet shape. But anyway, that's the stem. And I'll do another one next. Let's see if I can get this off easily. Water around, I've got a bat to put it on. There you go, so it lifted off fairly easily just there. So just the other part, you've got to make sure it isn't going to wobble too much when you take it off, because that's quite a tall one. And then we need, let's see, what have I got here? Let's do a short, stubby, fat one, about 1/3 of a pound again. The storm that I was filming during yesterday for the other goblets was intense last night. It sort of all looked like it calmed down. The storm passed over, so we must have been kind of in the eye of it, I guess. So we went to bed thinking that's the end of that, and then the wind started, and it was howling, really windy all night. So it actually blew some of the snow off the driveways. So when I was plowing the driveway, it wasn't quite as bad, but in other areas it was like 3-4 feet thick. So anyway, we'll go with a little, actually I'm going to do this one as a short, well, yeah, shorter one. I'll do this one shorter. I was going to make it a solid one again, but so we go shorter till you just barely touch the actual bat. Shorter and stubbier, because when the customers come in to buy pottery, one of the fears that they have is they're going to buy this beautiful piece of work and they're going to break it. So if they think it's going to be delicate or if it's going to be topsy-turvy, they won't buy it. I mean, I don't blame them. So so some people might like to have a much wider stemmed goblet. Makes it very sturdy. Okay, now I'm going to do by collaring. And then if you're very careful, let's dribble this. I haven't got to take the water out the inside yet. When I cut it off, most of the water will come out anyway. You can shape this, push out now. I'm going to give it a little ridge there. And you can do this when you're trimming too. And I can dig my nail in and make another little ring there to catch the glaze basically. And then you can use this wooden tool to push in. I've got a curve in that wooden tool, so I could do that. We're just playing. I don't make these myself. I'm just playing to show you what other ideas you could do. And this part at the bottom there, I don't need that. This little ridge there I'm trying to get rid of. So it's almost like turning on a lathe, except this is a lot easier than all those shavings coming off. So we can do this now, or you can do something in the throwing period. I mean in the trimming period. So that'll be a much wider kind of stem, make it very stable for your drinking glass. Throw some water around it. This one we should be able to take off with the wire. There we go. went through to the bat, so all the water that was inside just dribbled right out as I took it to the side of the wheel. Alright, so let's make a couple of different bowls than we did before. I was doing the very rounded bowls yesterday. Now remember, 1 centimeter from the bottom, stop. You saw why yesterday in the video I did why you need a thick area there, because you're putting all that weight down with the stem. These ones are a little easier because they're actually hollow. But it's still nice to make sure you keep it nice and thick there. Now you can do a tall tulip one. But I don't think that really goes with the two stems that I just made. Going thinner and thinner and thinner at the bottom there. Narrower, I should say, not thinner. Now, every pottery studio should develop their own style of shapes and forms to make you stand out from everybody else, because part of the problem in pottery is there's thousands of us. But that's not a problem in some ways, but of course it is if you're trying to be different and stand out, so you actually have customers that come to you instead of another potter. It's just the nature of competition. But so try to come up with a style in your own studio. I'm trying to show you lots of ways of doing things so that you can have the ability, there you go, I'll just push that in very narrow there, the ability to do whatever you want. My grandfather told me that I should be, what was it, he had an old saying, it's like, should be the master of one trade, not something about many. I can't remember how it went. But, and in pottery I've always felt like, well, I've narrowed it to pottery, but I don't have to limit myself to just one style of pottery, because I love all types of pottery. There you go, now I narrowed it even more by pressing that in. Alright, so we got that, and then if it's not going to drag too much on my finger, you can open this up a little bit and give yourself, it's a bit dry, let's wet it a bit. And just give yourself a little edge to drink out of there, because that's pretty close to what I did yesterday. Alright, so you've got it's like a wide tulip glass. Trying to drink out of things that flare out, you have to be careful because the liquid can come flooding over the side of your mouth. Alright, so that's good. So you should, if you're going to make different things, just try drinking out of them before you sell them. There you go, so it's just got that little edge at the top to give it a slightly different look. Some of these could actually be, now this is a piece of old clay banged together. Let's see what I can make of it. It was just scraps of clay when I was cutting all the balls up. So I'm going to cone it a couple of times. If you have clay that does that and you're not sure if it's even, just push it up tall and push it back down again. And you're making sure that all those little bits of clay that were banged together are sort of really stuck together as one ball of clay. And let go slowly when it's in center. Okay, not too deep. Leave that little thickness at the bottom there. So this once again is about 1/3 of a pound, between 1/3 and 1/2, I would say. Yeah, a lot of places after that storm last night, and when we get a big nor'easter like that, the whole area is just closed up because shops are not open because the workers just can't get to work. Driveways are full of snow, and when I came here, I decided after a couple of winters that I would buy a plow truck because I didn't want to be, you know, sort of held hostage to the weather all the time. And of course, as you get older, one of the biggest health things we face is, you know, people have heart attacks when they're shoveling snow. So I decided I'd do the plow truck version, trying to avoid that. Okay, so this is going to be the taller one. I don't want to narrow it too much yet, but I'm going to belly out a little bit here. And now I'm going to go back in. And give you that little tulip shape. It's just got an up and down a bit on the rim, so I'm going to just touch that rim. If it gets too bad when it does that, you can just cut it off. I almost never cut off though. It might affect trimming later on. Okay, then I'm going to use the rib again. These metal ribs are just great because you can make a curve with them that actually the clay can conform to. Now you can really make that tulip top there. And before I finish this, I'm going to take a little bit off the outside as well. And I've got find that other sponge on the stick that I made for narrow forms. I took it to one of my other wheels, I guess. Alright, so let's get the wooden tool. And I'm just going to push this in, angle the tool so I can really narrow the bottom. Just took that much off. So that's another little shape there. There you go. Just learn how to do that. That's the best way of taking pots off the wheel head. So now we have two shapes and two stems. I'm going to make one where the stem and the bowl are made at the same time. And this is, I did them this way for a while, but I decided, like I said in my other video on these, that I prefer the more elegant, narrower sort of bases to a wine glass stems. But anyway, so what you do then, you've got to remember that the bottom has to be the width that you want it to be. And then you just keep collaring up. Now you can choose to make the bowl before you make it too narrow, or you can make the bowl last. I know when I used to do these, I used to kind of worry about which way around it should be easier to do it, but I think I kind of came up on a compromise where I just narrow it, leaving enough clay for that bowl. It's almost the same as throwing off a hump, because you're going to have to trim the inside of this out quite a bit. See, this stem can be narrowed more. Now you don't let this drag at all because it will twist. So you want this little ball on the top to be totally even. When you open it up, it'll just, any wobble at all will start to wobble way more. So we've got that down there, which I can work a little bit more on, but I'm going to put a hole in this now, which will force the clay down a little bit too. I always think that taller wine glasses, although they're not very stable, are just nicer. Okay, so we got this going. I gotta get my finger right the way down without squashing it too much. Until I think I'm deep enough and I have a ball there that will be big enough to make the wine glass. See how far that went down? Now I can do a compromise each time. I can pull the stem back up a bit. This is obviously very advanced for throwing, so whoa. If you catch it with your finger, it'll do that too, which is always good to know. Okay, get my little finger out of the way. Now if I make 10 of these, the 10th one will be really good. So remember that when you try these. Your first one isn't going to be that great, just like me, because I don't normally do this anymore. So I've got to remember how I used to do it. And then we're going to take the stem up even higher. So I'm stealing clay from the bottom, bringing it up to the top. Alright, so I feel like this way is just so much harder, time consuming to get it perfect, that I chose to make my goblets a different way. But it shows that it is possible. And if you get really good at doing this, I think you could make nice goblets. But not big ones. And then we should start getting the water off this. Get the water out the inside. And you can shake the bottom a bit more. You can do this in the trimming stage if you want to. You can use the tool to define some areas before you actually have to trim, so it makes easy trimming time, and get as elaborate or, you know, just minimal or elaborate as you want. And finally, you've got to get the water off this so it doesn't collapse with the getting softer. And pushing out with your inner finger. This was just under £1 a plate, so if I didn't say that at the beginning. And there you go, you've got a one-piece goblet. Just looking for my, oh well, I don't have it. I was going to use my Freddy tool. It's on the other wheel as well. Alright, now I wouldn't try lifting this off the wheel because it's going to just wobble either way, so you just change bats if you're going to do it like this, I think. Alright, so there you go. And that's what it looks like. Not a bad shape, but I think there's more work in doing that than there is by throwing them separately and joining them together. Anyway, it's your decision. Okay, now we have to stick these other ones together. It's the same as the other goblets, pretty much all the same. These are the ones I did the other day. I just did some fluted ones with those new shapes of balls, sticking them together identical to the other. Basically, you score and scratch. If the clay is a little soft, you don't have to score and scratch, but this clay is probably in between. Then I've got, let's see, I'll use one of the fluted ones that is like a tulip. This is very soft at the bottom. If you want to, you can score and scratch, but it's really sticky and really soft right at that bottom there. It just sticks to my finger. And so you place it on after scoring and scratching and just wiggle it down. And you're going to straighten this later on. Once it's actually adhered, you can actually recenter it a little bit, and then you just press up. Like I said, this is not a style of goblet I usually do, but whenever you're adhering clay, the two pieces of clay should be the same softness. And I didn't say hardness, because a lot of people think you can join really hard clay together. It's really hard to join clay together without it sort of releasing afterwards. It's better to join clay and time it so that the clay is actually sort of soft enough so it sticks to your finger. You know, obviously this isn't up here, this is stiff, but I've protected the area where I'm actually adhering and make sure it stays soft, whereas the bottom part, which is taking the weight, is stiff. And then, you know, it'll be easy. But and I will flute these just like I did the other ones too. So it's a different style of goblet. I have to straighten them up. I'm going to center them just like I did on the other video. But basically that's how you do it. And just kind of make sure by wiggling around a little bit that you've got it. And I try to make sure that you've got a nice join that you can't see. So I've got a little trimming to do on this to do that. And sometimes it's a good idea to emphasize the join area. You don't have to hide everything. But, and then the inside is impossible to reach. So you ignore it. But I can definitely take that bump where I join the two together and pull that down into the actual bowl of the actual drinking bowl part. And that join will never come apart because this clay is, you could throw with this clay, it's that soft. It's that one. And then this one, the other one, the really chubby one, the paintbrush, I'm just going to stick this in and kind of pull that soft stuff that's there. I will trim this and carve it probably to emphasize. Well, you can probably see, but let's tip you down a bit. There you go. So I'm just opening up the join area where it's going to sit. This, once again, this is how they were drying. So it's really soft at the bottom area and stiff on the rim. And you can actually simply place it on that area there. It sits right in the hollow area. This is a very chubby little drinking glass, so I'll be trimming a lot out of this one. I want to show you just that there's different ways of doing it. There's even more than these extra ones that I've shown you. Maybe I'll try and think of doing some other ones. it's good for me to do things to explore as well, but I really like the way I already do the goblets. I'm just pulling the clay up. Let's see if I can do this. You might be able to see it better. I'm pulling the clay up from the soft area underneath, once again into the bowl. I might be able to see the bottom at the bottom, because this one's a little chubby and wide. I might be able to see the bottom and join it, but I don't think it needs to be anyway. Yeah, basically clay, when it's soft enough to throw, you can just join it together without any scratching and scoring. Saves a lot of time to time your clay nicely. And these are really, really easy to work with at this point as well, because you can move, bend it, move around, and just test it, you know. You want to see whether you're going to be able to hold something to actually drink out of, and that fits my hand, and it's going to shrink, so it'll be even smaller in the firing. But anyway, that's another way of making a goblet. Okay, there's the goblets from the alternative kind of little group of goblets that I threw the other day. Was it yesterday? Yeah, not that long ago. So trimming these is pretty much identical to the other ones, but the advantage, of course, with this one is it's all hollow underneath already. So so this is a different style. Okay, so I'm just basically detailing. This goblet could have been put on a little bit more centered, but see how I can use the trimming tool to give myself some extra rings there. Show you what I was doing. So I basically gave myself some extra rings just to make it more interesting. And then we can turn it the other way up. Okay, if the thing is a little off center, what I've done with a Giffin grip is I get these little foam pads that I can stick in and make it push over a little further on one side. That makes it a little bit more centered, because this one definitely wasn't centered. So even at my point in life, I could still join something, and it was too dry this morning when I came in, so I basically wasn't able to move it over. So now I'm just kind of fudging a little bit here, because as Shoji Hamada said years ago, it's only off center when it's spinning. So I guess that's a good point of view. So then I'm just trimming, I'm detailing. So you can do as much as you want to this, whatever you want to do, just to kind of go down. Maybe I should make a ridge there, just to give the glaze something to dribble into that place. And then because I like fluting, I don't have this to give myself a groove there. Whenever I do fluting, I like to start at a groove and finish at a groove, so I can actually do this later, or I could do it right now while it's still on the wheel. Like I said, I don't make these. I've got my own way of doing goblets, which I posted in my previous video, but I'm just trying to show you some alternative ways that you might be able to come up with a different goblet design of your own. Because my way isn't the best for everybody, because it's a very tall, elegant looking wine glass, but it's probably considered top heavy and a bit unstable. There you go. This one will definitely not be considered top heavy or unstable, I guess. Okay, so let's see what we have. There you go. So I've got some carving detail in this little goblet, and that's it. That's for that one, which was, let's see if I can do this one. I'm going to trim it both sides, I guess, again. The top may be off a little bit. No, it's not too bad actually, this one. It was just the other one. Okay, so this one I'm just doing the cleanup. I can do it with my finger just to smooth it a little bit, because it's still a little bit soft down there. That's just to kind of push in a little bit to smooth it. But then I take my trimming tool, finish that, and just get it refined a little bit. And then where I did the join, which is about there, I'm going to emphasize that point. put a little groove in, and then I'm going to do the same here. So we have that little double line thing that I like to do in my pieces. It's hard to see. The light is on, but it's not giving you a good definition. I'm going to try and make it a bit deeper. I don't want to go through it though, so you can see that a bit better. So I'll do something in that little area there. And then this part, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a line around, because I'll probably flute down to this line here. And maybe, let's say I want to have 2 lines. So I can flute down to the second one there. You don't have to flute, obviously. And then I'm just going to kind of smooth it out a bit. There's no bumps on there, so it's not too bad. And I wonder if I can flute this way. That's a long flute line to do, but... Okay, and then clean up those little marks where I was finishing there. The top one's pretty good. And let's see what we have. So this one is a pretty long stemmed, but much more, you know, hollow again up there. That's a nice one. I like this one. I might actually make more like this. I like that. And then the other one was when I made it really solid. So let's see if I can change my arms on this. Now you can kind of just knock up to put it back on center because it was leaning over a bit. Here we go. And then that's a bit thin in that area there, so I'm going to thicken that up a bit. We're trimming off the edge. And this is solid, so I'm going to find the central point and just trim out a little bit in here. You don't want to make it too light, but you don't want it too thick either. It just takes longer to dry if it's actually... I'm just taking out just a touch. See how thick? It's not too thick anyway. My sinks are thicker than this, so... And then I'm basically just taking out a bit there so it sits level. And then just use your finger just to smooth it off a little bit. And that's that bit. Okay, so this is one of the regular ones that I do. My design that I actually decided is the nicest and easiest one to make. So I'm just doing that, refining, getting rid of my fingerprints. That's always a tough thing for us doing handmade things. We kind of like the idea of things looking handmade, but we want to make sure that they look refined enough so that people think they're well handmade really well. So that rough area is now pretty smooth, and I just have to flute these as I did in the other video. Same again. That one has a little twist in it down there. That's probably from when I was just trimming the bottom area. As I said, the stem can actually twist with the weight. That's why I put the pen in, to try and stop that. It won't be noticeable when it's not spinning, so you can put that little groove in there. There's like a little ridge there. can put as many of those as you want. There's another one just there. It's so easy to do. Go for it. Oh, well, that's, I'm going to trim down a little bit there. This one did twist. The clay is not totally dry, so it's a little soft, and that's what caused that. But you want to try and get this done while the clay's still got some softness in it. I wonder if it's worth trying to get rid of that part there. You can do as much as you want. There you go, it looks a bit better now actually. See, it's very soft. That's another one. But here you go. A lot of these are in order for a lady who wanted a sort of brush marky kind of blue goblet, and that's what these ones are. So I glazed them in waxing brown from Master & Cone 6 glazes, and then brushed over the top with variegated blue and oatmeal, and that's what happened. Give you a nice kind of run, just coming down a little bit into the fluted area. There you go. And there should be 10 of these. I think she wants 9. But they're all the same, those ones, because I had to make them like a set. There's another day, so they're all doing the same type of thing. Let's see if I can get rid of all these quickly. Turned out pretty nice. Got a nice oatmeal center. I like to think people can see the wine color. So the waxing brown is a glaze that I don't use in the gas kiln. I only use it in the electric kiln, because in the gas kiln it's got too much iron in it and it fluxes too much. Oh, this one's different. There you go, that one's same. This one's the same. Any others? No, now we're on to the different ones, I think. Yeah, so I did some for myself for the gallery, and I think those turned out very pretty. See the blue on the top, and then I did, let's see, what glaze did I use on the top there? No, it was Tenmoku Gold. And then variegated blue, not much oatmeal, but look how it ran down to the bottom and then didn't go over the edge. Isn't that amazing? I thought that was a bit risky putting variegated blue on the bottom. Let's hope the others are the same. But the blue is really pretty underneath there, fading to the black Tenmoku Gold on the top. How many of these did I make? Same again, didn't run on the bottom. This firing profile is really good. It's only got a 15-minute soak, but 22, 23 for a 15-minute soak, and then 175 degrees an hour down to 1750 with another 30 minutes soak. So that seems to be working, controlling. It allows for running, but it doesn't allow for too much running. But of course that depends on how thick you glaze too. And that depends on how runny your glaze is as well. So I'm old school. I just dip my finger in and see the thickness and glaze. That's the way we were taught. Here's another one of these mugs that everybody seems to love at the moment. I just nailed a bunch of these out. This is the first one. I think I glazed a few of them like this, and there's still running on underneath the handle, which I just have to grind off a little bit. But everywhere else it ran just to the edge. And it's just where the handle is. You always get a bit more. This one will probably go straight away because that is absolutely spectacular, all the way around. You just have to grind it. These are refires. And this time they look good. You saw these in a previous video come out because they were too bubbly. It was that was the fake ash, and I've been dipping oatmeal over the top to see if I can smooth out the bubbles, and it really did. It now looks nice, shinier, and no bubbles. It wasn't really overfired, it was just textural. And this one, the same thing. Really pretty, but none of those little sharp bubbles. Okay, here's some more goblets from my goblet video, which I'm going to be showing these probably in my goblet video, so you'll see that before you see these coming out of the kiln. But these look really nice. This is the goblet that was thrown all in one piece. So it's a very small one. Here's my traditional, whoa, that one ran down a lot. That's another one for the order. That should be 10 of them. And then there's my tulip wine glass. And that's variegated blue with bright blue. Looks very pretty, and there's probably some oatmeal dipped at the very top edge, but that's very pretty. And there's the one I was just experimenting again, giving a wider sort of base to it. That's probably more stable. It has a kind of medieval feel to it, I think. But it's very easy to hold. But that's a nice one. Sometimes I expect, oh look, a little bit of crawling. I'll have to touch that one up in a glaze fire, another firing. But whenever you refire something, it's nice to put things aside and then do a firing of just refires, because you should lower the temperature for the refire by about 30 degrees. And that will actually mean the glaze doesn't run as much. So you won't get, because glazes tend to mature at a lower temperature each time you fire the kiln, refire them. So you can get overfiring effects. So lower your firing temperature by 30 degrees and it won't actually get the overfiring effect. Look at the blue on the bottom there, that's really pretty.